Hello, everyone. My name is Annette Peterson, and I'm so happy to be here today. I work at Copenhagen Zoo as the animal training coordinator, and I also serve as chair of the EAZA Animal Training Working Group, EAZA being the European Associations of Zoos and Aquarium. And I'm so happy to be here with Barbara Heidenreich.
Hi, I'm Barbara Heidenreich from animaltrainingfundamentals.com, and I am an advisor for the EAZA Animal Training Working Group.
Yes, you indeed are, and you have also done a huge job helping out doing this animal training guidelines for EAZA, and this is the ones that we are going to present for you here.
So first, let's introduce you to the table of contents for this best practice guidelines for animal training. We are going to go over all these different topics here, so we're not going to read all of these off, but let's get started and going through our guidelines.
Before we go into the content of the animal training document, I'd like to do a short introduction because we have to remember that animal training is increasingly evidence-based and we learn more and more from the science. So this document will be a living document. We will revisit this document and it will evolve as new data emerges. The Animal Training Working Group will also provide animal training educational experiences and resources, including workshops and courses to cover the more practical part of the animal training. Colleagues are invited to reach out with additional questions and ideas and recommendations. We really want you to get in touch with us with any ideas you have.
So one of our first tasks in our document was to define what is animal training, especially to the zoo community. So we came up with a definition that we think is very specific to the zoo community. We defined it as intentionally changing behavior with an awareness and understanding of the principles of behavior analysis and applying these principles with individuals or groups of animals in managed care. And for us, that goal is more than just implementing behavior change. It also includes an understanding of why a procedure works and how to apply it with specific animals under very specific conditions. And ideally, this is also accomplished while optimizing welfare. And when we talk about optimizing welfare, we need to define what optimizing means. And for us, that means we're maximizing the possible benefits and we're minimizing the possible harms. And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail as we get into our ethics section.
In the EAZA Standards for Accommodation and Care of Animals in Zoos and Aquaria from 2022, it says that EAZA recognizes the use of evidence-based training technology can lead to improved animal welfare for animals in managed care. Because of this, training is considered an essential part of animal care. And the list is long, so it's, for example, cooperation in medical care, participation in day-to-day care. It addresses on-the-site responses, creates enriching experiences, facilitate data collections for scientific studies, support for rehabilitation conservation initiatives, provides human health and safety mitigations, participation in educational programs, economically advantages. And on some of the pages, you can click for video examples. So here's an example of how you can see our videos. When you click on a video link, it will take you to a page where all the videos in the documents live, and they can help you visualize the practical application of concepts and procedures. The videos will, of course, also be updated, added, and exchanged ongoing if needed or available, and it serves a more practical approach to the document, we think.
They're very picky about what they want to eat. So some days they want sprats, other day caitlin, or sandio. They're the ones that usually most of the time.
This video was a perfect example of preventative medical care where we can see the puffins' feet underneath by training them to go on a mirror box every day and every morning.
And along those lines, we have another example where we have a giraffe that's trained to cooperate in medical care. And in this example, you'll see an animal that's going to curl his back feet so that the staff members here can take a look at the underside of his feet.
Another example of how animal training is beneficial and essential is when we can use training in research and facilitate data collection for scientific studies. Here's a panda that has been trained to allow oral swab for data collection for a scientific study. This behavior is also important in daily medical care for oral inspection and swab tests, like we did, for example, when we test for COVID during the pandemic.
In the document, we also go over some behaviors that we describe as foundation behaviors. These are behaviors we think most facilities would consider essential to getting started with training, and these are behaviors we would say are helpful for training other behaviors.
One of our foundation behaviors are calm behaviors. Calm behaviors must be observable and measurable. And for example, before sheep shearing should begin, calm behaviors were reinforced. When we look for calm behaviors, we look for behaviors like the eyes are relaxed or the muscles are relaxed. And it can also be like behaviors of self-care, like grooming, scratching, head shake, and eating, like in this video example. Another one of our foundation behaviors is targeting. So targeting or target training is training an animal to orient a body part towards something. This can be used to direct an animal or a body part without touching the animal, like we see in this video with the iguana following the target.
In our animal training guidelines, we also have a section on generating institutional support for training. And as you can see, different areas, different departments, different positions will have a different connection to training and different ways that they can support training. So if you check the document, you'll see some suggestions on how those different departments can be supportive of training in your institution or facility. So the document also goes into a variety of definitions. And one of the sections that we really want to get into is some scientific definitions, and especially the different disciplines that influence animal training. So ethology, phylogeny, and ontogeny, those can be some words that seem kind of big and heavy, and but they're really important to animal training. So ethology is the scientific study of animal behavior, especially as it occurs in the natural environment. Phylogeny is the natural selection of traits due to genetic inheritance over generations. So these are basically the sciences that prepare our animal learners to do whatever behaviors they're going to do. And then ontogeny is the selection of behavior by consequences during the lifetime of the individual organism. So this is what the animal will learn over time based on what's happening in its environment. And all three of these are really important to what we do as people who work with animals with behavior and behavior change. So continuing with our definitions, we also cover how animals learn by going over some of the terms that might be familiar to people, but also some new ones that we get from the field of behavior analysis. One that many are familiar with is positive reinforcement. And then continuing with that, we also cover things like exposure therapies and respondent behavior. And in this example, you'll see an example of negative reinforcement, in which a distance is going to be used as a reinforcer to teach a rhinoceros iguana that was showing aggressive responses to get people to go away, that it can use calm responses to get people to go away.
Like, to get his food bowl in there in the mornings, I lure him over here, open the door and throw it in really fast, and then close the door and stuff like that. But
I gotta say, that was a pretty awesome rep. He laid down. That's pretty awesome.
Another very important thing to consider are the stakeholders. So to determine how the existing behavior affects the welfare and safety and the behavior of these stakeholders, and how the success or failure of the intervention will impact them.
Also in the document is behavior change programs and procedures. And this can get a little complicated, but we just go over them briefly to talk about different programs that are different approaches to how you can address behavior goals and behavior challenges. And then we also talk about the procedures that you're going to use, and shaping is a procedure, but there's also procedures that can involve many different steps. And when you develop a procedure, you want to make sure that it is individualized and function-based. And that takes more than just saying, oh, am I using positive reinforcement? It means that you need to look at the individual behavior, the behavior in question. You need to look at the effectiveness of the procedure that you're using, which means, is it producing the intended results that you want? The efficiency, meaning, is it, kind of minimizing the resources that you're going to be using. We do have to take that into consideration as zoological facilities. And again, are we using optimal procedures? So are we maximizing the benefits for the animal and minimizing the harms when we're developing a training procedure? So it can take a lot more when we're considering all the different elements of our procedure. We also want to make sure that we're not intentionally using aversive stimuli to inflict pain, fear, anxiety, or distress. Those aren't necessary for us to evoke behavior change. And an important thing to consider is that there is no one-size-fits-all or ideal recipe to follow when training animals. And this helps emphasize the importance of understanding not only the application, but the science behind behavior change procedures. So we hope that this document helps introduce people to these ideas and these concepts. As was mentioned before, it still may take more training and courses and instruction to really understand how to apply it all, but this document is to help people get an introduction and a taste to why having these specific individual function-based training procedures and programs are very important to your training.
And of course, there's the ethical considerations. Training should optimize animal welfare. Facilities should promote competency of practitioners, regularly conduct risk-benefit analysis of training goals, programs, and procedures, and of course, support assent-based programs and disseminate knowledge. And if you're looking for structure in your training program, the guidelines have suggestions to how you can get that by oversight, application, primary trainers, or consultants.
Another important thing in the world of animal training is data collection and record keeping. The document provides 9 reasons we should keep records when it comes to animal training. And some of the documents we suggest are behavior goals and proposed deadlines, shaping plans, training logs, keeping video of completed behaviors, documenting undesired behavior, and the interventions that you use to address those problem behaviors. We also have a link to SharePoint where you can see some sample documents, and we hope to keep adding to those examples in the future. So as we get towards the end of the document, you'll find some additional resources that will give you more information about animal training. They're hyperlinked, so you can go get those resources, download them, or watch them if they're videos. And then there also is a template for those who are developing best practice guidelines for EEPs or tags in EAZA. And this particular best practice guideline is specifically for the section that has to do with training. So you can basically take that template and insert it in your best practice guidelines if you're working on a best practice guidelines for another species. And that way you don't have to write the section on training. You can just kind of take this and stick that into your best practice guidelines, and you're welcome to modify it. However, we hope it will be helpful to those of you who are working on best practice guidelines for species within EAZA. And that is available in SharePoint.
So finally, here's some recommendations for implementing animal training guidelines. This resource is meant to outline some of the elements that are most helpful in understanding and adding structure to training programs. Every element EAZA members can put into practice is another step towards optimizing welfare of animals in managed care. We recommend adding components that are easily implemented and building upon this groundwork. We have included elements that most facilities can utilize and implement right away, as well as ideas that may inspire future development of training programs. Your feedback is encouraged. Please, we hope you find this document useful in achieving your goals, and thank you so much for being here.
So if you want to download the guidelines and have a copy for yourself, they are freely available. There is a link in the text that goes along with this video below this video here. You can also download them by going to EAZA.net conservation programs and do the hashtag BPG. We do encourage sharing this document. We would love to see it utilized much in the way that the 5 domains document is utilized. And again, we see it as a living document that will continue to evolve as more information is learned, as training continues to evolve and change and progress. And again, we thank you for listening, and we hope you find this document useful.